Today we're going to talk about which one of the two new consoles I think you should pick up. And we're going to do it right now. What's up guys, Luke back again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about, of the two new consoles, which one I think is the best value and which one I think you should pick up first. Personally, I'm a little bit torn between the two consoles, so I'm making this video for two reasons. One is
for... Woohoo!
One is for...
What a moron!
What the heck? Dude! What the hell? Dude, I just destroyed this guy in Smash Bros, bro. Okay, that's good and well, but I'm trying to help people decide which new console they should get first. The PS5 or the Xbox Series? Dude, duh! It's not that simple. Sony and Microsoft are both coming out with new consoles this holiday season. Inventories are low. You probably have a better chance of winning the lottery than picking one of these two consoles up, but we need to make a decision as to which one to get first, and I'm gonna help them make that decision. Okay. Psycho. Thank you! Gosh. So I'm making this video for two reasons. One is so that you can decide as the viewer which one to get first, and to be honest, two is so that I can decide which one to get first. Both these consoles are great. They have their pros and their cons. So this video is basically to get to the bottom of which one is the one to get first. Because let's be honest, supplies are short and budgets are short. We're gonna take a deep dive into both consoles, see the pros and the cons, and at the end, we're gonna come to a conclusion, and I'm gonna tell you which console you should be picking up at launch. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you sit back, relax, smash that like button, and let's get right into it. Xbox Series X and Series S. So we're gonna go through the pros first, and the first thing that I want to talk about is backwards compatibility. Xbox has been very adamant the last few years to ensure that the customers have backwards compatibility with their old software from previous generations, going all the way back to the original Xbox. We have heard recently that PlayStation 5 is doing a similar thing, but vast majority of that is going to be focused on the immediate previous generation of the PS4 going into the PS5, which makes a lot of sense. But Xbox has gone even further with this, and you can play games like Jade Empire or Crimson Skies or Black on your Xbox Series X, and you can do it in 4K, which I think is very powerful going into the current generation to have that all-in-one system. We kind of are moving into a minimalist style of living in America and abroad. So having one system that plays them all, not having to deal with jumbled wires and wired controllers and things like that, plugging and unplugging. It's just a convenience factor that I feel like is overlooked by a lot of people, but is very valuable going into the next generation. The next thing I want to talk about is a thing that sort of Xbox frontiered and PlayStation is sort of trying to play catch up, trying to match what Xbox is doing. But Xbox has been talking about this for quite a while. And one of the big features going into next generation that I think is great is smart delivery. And the way smart delivery works is basically you have the ability to, if you bought a game on the Xbox One and then you purchase a Series X, say 6 months or a year later, let's just say you picked up Watch Dogs Legion. So you bought Watch Dogs Legion on the Xbox One, and then after the Series X has been out for a little while, you're playing Legion with your friends, you're really enjoying the game as far as its online features go, and then you think, okay, I want to go and get a Series X now, get the better frame rates, get the better resolution, all that stuff. You now don't have to pay for the game again. And I think if you look back to the previous generation, this was a big problem with Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5, I think, came out in October or November of the last year of the Xbox 360 and PS3. And then the new system came out, and we all had to go out and buy GTA 5 again because the online features and because the game was so addictive, and we wanted to play it on newer hardware. So this has been a big problem for a couple of generations now, but it's good to see that they're sort of alleviating that pain of having to buy the same game twice. So smart delivery, I think, is a big pro in the Xbox category. Another thing that's sort of subtle and not a lot of people are talking about is the ability to carry over previous generation controllers to new console hardware. So I personally have the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. I've talked about it many times on the YouTube channel. I love this controller. It's my go-to for all things modern gaming, and I am just really excited that I can actually move that controller now over to the Series X seamlessly, and I don't have to reinvest in, say, an Elite Series 3 controller. I can just use my Series 2, which I love, on the new console. And another reason why this is great is for people that, you know, sometimes you have friends over, sometimes you have family over, and you want to sit down and play a game of, say, Overcooked, which is a multiplayer game that's very easy to pick up and play. You can play with pretty much anyone in your family, and it's just a fun, awesome game. But majority of the time, you're playing single player. You know, let's just face it, current generation consoles and next gen consoles are focusing a little bit more on the single player aspect as well as online multiplayer, not necessarily couch co-op or couch split screen. It's not something that you're going to invest in and get a lot of value out of if you're buying all these new controllers. The next thing I want to talk about is one that a lot of you guys already know about. I've talked about it in my podcast many times, and that is Game Pass. Game Pass, in my opinion, it's my favorite service. An absolute insane value. They keep adding things all the time. Actually, today, they just announced on Twitter that Disney Plus is going to be an Xbox perk. So if you're a Game Pass Ultimate member, you can now have Disney Plus for free. So the value just keeps adding more and more. Also, the acquisition of Bethesda, as well as the collaboration with EA Play being kind of grafted into the Game Pass environment, just is offering by the day a more and more insane value. I don't know how long they can keep this up. I'm praying to God that they continue with the same price points and everything, but I'm gonna say right now, if it was a little higher, I would totally pay it because the value is insane. It's already there. So I love what they're doing as far as Game Pass goes. And a thing that people don't think about when they're buying new consoles is you're not just buying the console, you need to buy software too. The cost adds up very quickly, but Game Pass sort of alleviates that, gives us the ability to play first-party AAA games on day one without having to pay the $60 or $70 that those games cost up front. So Game Pass is also offering a good value at launch where you can have access to hundreds of games and not have to pay retail price for them. And the next thing I want to talk about is the Xbox Series X in specific and its power. This console is going to be the most powerful console On paper, we've seen in the past, like with the Xbox 360 and PS3, that the PS3 was actually a more powerful console, but it was very hard to develop for. So a lot of games looked better on the Xbox 360 just for that reason. Obviously, Xbox is not doing this, but on paper, they do have a better looking and a more powerful console with the 12 teraflops, whatever the hell that means, and ray tracing, SSD technology, NVMe SSD technology, and they're shooting for a 4K 100 FPS resolution and frame rate, which is a bold statement, but with all things considered, I think they definitely could pull it off with the increased CPU power. I'm not going to get too nerdy on you guys, but with the CPU power being lifted up on consoles, which in the past usually was neglected, we're able to reach higher frame rates in this next generation. So definitely, as far as hardware power on paper, the Xbox Series X is going to take the cake. Oh, dude! Did you hear the Xbox is aiming for 4K 120 FPS in next-gen hardware? Yeah, dude, I literally just got done saying that. Can I ask you something? What is it? That monitor behind you? You know, the one you play all your games on? Yeah, what about it? What resolution and frame rate can it display? 1080p 60.
What an idiot!
Dude, what is your point? Oh, nothing. Whatever. The next thing that I want to talk about is the two price points. We have a Xbox Series X that is going to be $499, and we have the Xbox Series S that is going to be $299. And for a next generation console, I feel like the $299 is a pretty awesome price tag. Getting into next generation on the cheap like that is a very, very high value, and coupling that with Game Pass is great because the Series S doesn't have a disk drive, but you do have Game Pass where you can basically play hundreds of games and you don't need disk drive for those games. Now the PS5 is going to have two price points as well, but it's not as much of a jump as far as savings goes. Whereas the Xbox Series X and Series S both have a great value, and they both have their perks and their downfalls, but the Series S is a great way to get into the next generation and not break the bank doing it. The S is going to be $299 and the X is going to be $499. So there's a $200 savings there. If you don't want to go all out and buy the X, you have that option. It makes a little bit more sense going with a diskless system. And the next thing I want to talk about is the aesthetics of the console. I feel like the Xbox Series S is a little bit less aesthetically pleasing than the Xbox Series X, but they're both very nice consoles. They're compact, they look nice on the shelf, they're not too busy, so they're not distracting and taking away from kind of the overall look of your entertainment hub in your living room or maybe in your bedroom. And they just look nice. They can be put anywhere and they just look nice. They're aesthetically pleasing consoles. So both of them get kind of the check mark in my opinion as far as the beauty aspect of consoles. And last thing I want to talk about as far as pros go for the Xbox Series X and S is Quick Resume. Quick Resume is fantastic. It is lightning fast. Literally from power on to in a game of Doom Eternal, there's videos posted online, takes around 12 seconds from powering on to actually running around and destroying demons takes you 12 seconds. So if you can't wait 12 seconds, I'm sorry for you. You have zero patience. But personally, I think that is very impressive as far as speed goes from power on to playing games. 12 seconds. Also, the nice thing about quick resume too is you can have multiple games and tasks running at the same time, so you can jump from game to game to game. Up to 6 or 7 games can be running at the same time, and you can bounce back and forth. Now, is anyone going to be doing that? Probably not. It's probably going to be more like 1 or 2 games, but still, it's really nice that the quick resume is that you're able to literally in seconds snap from playing GTA over to playing, say, a game like the Medium. So a really awesome feature going into the next generation is quick resume. All right, now we're gonna talk about the cons of the Xbox Series X and S. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is no first-party games at launch. Oh, that hurts really bad. As we all know, Halo Infinite has been delayed to later into 2021. So we're not going, and that was our main flagship first-party AAA game that we were supposed to be getting at launch. So with that one out of the question, now we literally have 0 first-party games at launch. And for the most part, we don't really have hardly any games at launch, with the exception of the Medium. And if you're into Tetris Effect, that is actually like drawing us into buying this new hardware. And with the smart delivery system, it's kind of been made okay to not buy next gen until a little bit later on down the line when, say, Halo Infinite comes out. So there's really nothing that's like super driving us to go and get these new systems at launch, because we don't necessarily have to play the newest, latest, greatest games. Almost all those games are going to be on the Xbox One at launch as well. So there's not a huge drive for us to go and pick up the system because of software. The next con that I wanted to talk about with the Xbox Series X and S is the UI. Now, the Xbox One's UI, I've never been a fan of. I've basically outlined it many times in previous videos, such as my first main sort of video like this, where I talked about the Xbox One and my kind of new found love for it. I did talk about the UI being a total pain in the butt. And with the Series X, it looks like, and S, it looks like the UI isn't changing all that much. They've basically said that it's a little better, and they've kind of optimized it, if you will. But I just still can't get my head around that. Can't actively find the settings on the current Xbox UI. I feel like settings should be like one of the main things that you should have access to, and currently it's still very complicated to go in and access your settings. I think that's a huge blunder. I do like the aesthetics of the UI that they've upgraded to, but I don't think it's enough to call it a pro. And the last con that I wanted to talk about with the Xbox Series X and S is their proprietary storage. With the PS5, we'll get into that in a bit. PS5 will be able to take NVMe drives, although it is a specific compatibility list that is kind of a head scratcher, but it will have the ability to take PC NVMe drives, whereas the Xbox Series X and Series S both are proprietary drives that are made by Seagate. First of all, I'm not a big fan of Seagate doing repairs. You get a lot of dead Seagate drives, so I've kind of lost the quality and the value in Seagate. So seeing them make new storage devices for the Xbox is kind of a questionable decision in my opinion, but I guess they have some sort of running deal with them. maybe they're under contract, something like that. But they are proprietary drives, so that means you have to buy a specific format. You can't just throw in an NVMe drive, and that is a big con in my opinion. We've seen it a lot with Sony in the past, where they've gotten these proprietary formats. Like Sony had in the past love to release proprietary formats. We remember the PSP, Memory Stick Pro Duo, and the PS Vita as well had its own exclusive memory stick, and it never worked out well for them because it was a specific format or a specific device, so you don't have a whole bunch of supply, so demand increases and the cost just goes through the roof. And if there was one thing that I would say is like a deal breaker with a new console, it's proprietary storage. It stinks. We're still dealing with it with collectors of the PS Vita, so gonna be a problem in the future in my opinion, and is definitely a problem at launch. Okay, the PS5. So we're gonna get into pros first. And the first thing I want to talk about is we don't have one, we don't have two, but we have 3 first-party exclusive games on day 1. Dude, did you hear that they just announced that the new Spider-Man game is gonna be on PS4 and PS5 this console launch? What? No way. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, you're probably pretty pissed off about it. Make like an egg and beat it. Okay, 2 first-party exclusive games on day 1. Dude, did you just hear that they announced that the new Sackboy game is gonna be on PS4 too? Make like a hockey player and get the puck out! One first-party exclusive game on day 1. Okay, 1 first-party exclusive game on day 1, and that game is Demon Souls. A lot of people are Dark Souls and Demon Souls fans, so I think that's going to be a great thing for you guys. On day 1, you have a game to kind of rally around. It's still a great game to kind of get on launch day, you know, really see the power of the PS5. That one's going to be a great option as a PS5 owner. Miles Morales obviously is going to be a good option too, but this is about what is a pro of the PS5, and I can't add Miles Morales in with it too if it's gonna be on the PS4 anyways. I don't think that that's really fair. Demon Souls is a game that you guys can all rally around, and it is a day 1 purchase. I think is a no-brainer, even if you're not the biggest Demon Souls fan, to kind of pick up so you can experience the game and kind of experience what next gen has to offer as far as power goes. The next thing I want to talk about is next generation's controller. There is a lot of new upgrades coming with the DualSense controller, like haptic feedback, sort of like the HD Rumble that Nintendo introduced with the Nintendo Switch, as well as variable tension triggers, and with short and full throw tension, and a bunch of other features like microphone, and a bunch of things really packed into this new DualSense controller that I think are way overdue. Haptic feedback is great, and it's more immersive, and it's more versatile as far as what it can mimic. Like, for example, the feeling of maybe walking in sand, or possibly the feeling of a heartbeat, things like that are able to be conveyed a little bit better than just a motor spinning with HD rumble. So it's really good. Well, for the DualSense, it's labeled as haptic feedback, but it's the same thing. Also, the variable tension triggers, I feel like, are going to be very immersive, especially in first-party games. You're going to be able to basically experience a bow and pulling the trigger when you're pulling back that bow, and you have a lot of tension there. There's going to be the ability to add that into games, and I think it's a great step forward as far as making games more immersive and making them just more exciting. And then lastly, the microphone. And the microphone seems like a little NSA, a little like maybe not so necessary, but hear me out here. The microphone is going to be probably the best feature in the controller that's not going to be a gimmick, and it's more of a thing where it's very necessary, especially when it comes to your online play and your communication with chatting and things like that. Or maybe you want to kick back, it's a Saturday afternoon, you want to watch a little Netflix, or possibly maybe surf the web on your browser. There's a microphone now that you can basically do talk to text and search things a lot faster, and it's a lot less cumbersome. Also with the microphone, there's added features such as the ability to blow in it to maybe blow out a candle or something to that effect inside of games. So I think it adds another layer of immersion to games as well. I think the microphone is a much needed add-on for next generation, and to be honest with these controllers, Sony's getting really innovative. You've seen them over the last couple of generations get very innovative with touchpads and gyro controls, and really just packing as much as they can into the controller to sort of reinvent what it's like to, have and use a game controller in the next generation. This is where Sony, I feel like, separates themselves from Microsoft as far as the immersion aspect goes. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the UI. This has been redone completely for the PS5, and it's pretty fantastic. There's a lot of features here that I think are very valuable to me as a gamer. The main one that kind of jumps out at me when I think of the new UI is the ability to look up tutorials or walkthroughs inside of the UI itself in a seamless manner. So you can actually just go right into the UI and look up tutorials that have been made by the developer for you to kind of help you along and just kind of guide you in the right direction. I think that is just aces. Another thing with the new UI is the expanded party chat ability. There's a lot of new features as far as parties go, and I think this was well overdue. The PS4 was very bare bones as far as like party chat went, but this one is fully fledged out. You can be in a party chat with multiple of your friends, and you can they can share their screen, and you can go right in real time and see what they're doing on their screen, maybe to help them out or just to watch them. You also have the ability with screen sharing to move around. Basically, like, you can still be playing your game and you can watch your friend's game at the same time with a picture-in-picture mode. You can basically move their screen anywhere on the screen, so it's kind of out of your way, and you can be playing your game and you can watch them play theirs. I know some people that actually have in the past bought in the same game as a loved one that's maybe across the nation or the world, and they played the same game at the same time with their loved one while talking maybe on the phone. For example, the Fallout series is, I think that's kind of like a way that they were able to play together. They were both playing the same game at the same time. So this kind of takes that and like ups it a little bit and brings it sort of into the next generation. Another pro And the final pro that I want to talk about is the NVMe PC standard storage expansion. With the Xbox Series X and S, there was only NVMe storage through their proprietary format, so you can't use any like standard PC storage. With the PS5, however, there will be NVMe PC SSD expansion. It will be based on a backwards compatibility list, so we have to wait for Sony to basically tell us which hard drives or SSDs are going to be compatible with the PS5. But other than that, it's pretty wide open, so we'll be able to hopefully get better deals on expandable storage than you would get going with the Xbox Series X and S. So that is a definite benefit. The downside is at launch, PS5 is not going to have any support for any expandable storage. So you're going to be kind of like locked into having just the internal storage, as well as being able to transfer your games onto an external like old school drive, but you can't play them from that old school drive. You have to transfer them back and forth, which saves a little bit of time in downloads and data usage, but is still not a super good solution at launch. But hopefully shortly after launch, we'll get more answers on that, and there will be a pretty wide compatibility. With that comes competition, and with that comes better value for the consumer. So hopefully we'll see better deals on expandable storage SSD drives on the PS5 than we will on the Series X and S. And as far as the cons go, now I know my pros were a little shorter than the Series X, but the pros on the PS5 are very big pros, right? They're like brand new UI that's like immersive and awesome. The controller's like fully remapped. It has a first party exclusive. Like there's a lot of like really big, awesome pros, whereas the Series X has a lot of small things that they're doing right, but nothing that's like, whoa, you know, like insanely good. Aside from Game Pass. Game Pass is freaking awesome. But just, you know, bear that in mind. So going into cons now. I don't like the look of the console. I've tried to like the look of the console. I've tried to like the look of the DualSense. This is obviously subjective. You may love the look of the PS5. You may think it looks better than the Series X and S, and you're totally entitled to your opinion. But I'm going to label it as a con. I think this thing, they tried way too hard. They should have stuck to their tried and true black console format with variations. But on the bright side, there is hope that those side panels will be interchangeable. Maybe Sony will come out with some black side panels, and we can still get that sort of PlayStation, old school PlayStation look. But it's not going to change how big this thing is. This system is absolutely massive. If you would have told me that there would be a next generation system that was going to be bigger than the original PS3 fat system, I would have thought you were absolutely crazy. But guess what? We now have a system coming out that is the biggest console ever released, I think, or very, very close to it within, of course, recent years. This thing towers over the PS3 fat and every other PlayStation console that's came out before it. This is going to be an issue, I think, in Japan as well, where space is limited. It's the most expensive rent in the entire world. I don't think this is going to be very successful in the Japanese market. And to be honest, I don't like the direction they went with this. Hopefully it runs cool, though. From what I've heard, it's a very cool running console, so I guess that does sort of balance it out. And the next thing that I wanted to sort of label as a con, the PS5's two price points. We have a disc system that's obviously in sort of an afterthought. It's going to be $499, as well as we have the digital only system that is going to be $100 less at $399. I still think $399 is a lot of money. Maybe you don't. I personally think that's a lot of money for a game console. I'm gonna put this one under a con because sacrificing the disk drive and saving only $100, I don't think is a value that's worth it. So I feel like people are going to be flocking to the disc version only, and it's just not enough of a value as far as the diskless version. And with the Series S, you could sort of get away with having a diskless version because of Game Pass. Game Pass, as well as a $200 price cut, I feel like the Series S made a little more sense than the diskless PS5. This one is also subjective. Maybe you guys feel differently, but I'm gonna label the $400 plus price point as a con. Also, if you're not a Demon's Souls fan, guess what? You're in the same boat as the Series X. There's no other first-party titles at launch. Hopefully this will change very soon, and I believe that it will change very, very soon. With Kenna Bridge of Spirits, I can't wait for that game. And then a bunch of other awesome looking games being announced. Tokyo Mirage, also Deathloop. There's a lot of good games to be excited about on the PS5, but those will be more down the line sort of games, and they're not first party exclusive games. So the only one is going to be Demon's Souls. So if you're just not a Demon's Souls fan, I feel like that this is going to be a bit of a con as well. There's not much to play. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the PS5's not so clear take on smart delivery. Smart delivery is obviously a Xbox Series X and S term, but the PS5 is trying to offer a similar sort of situation, but it's got a lot of hooks in it, and it's kind of sloppy in my opinion. I feel like it was an afterthought. It was something that they weren't planning on doing. They're planning on doubling down on their whole remastered thing where they take previous gen games and they remaster them. Literally all they do is just add a little resolution and frame rate, and then they charge full price for it. So I feel like this was something that they were planning to do going into PS5, and they found out real quick that that wasn't gonna work. So they've scrambled now to try and like match what smart delivery is doing in their own sort of way, and I don't think it's working nearly as well as the Series X. So in conclusion, both of these consoles are great options with a lot to look forward to for the next generation. And even after weighing out the pros and cons, I'm still having a hard time figuring out which one to go with. But I made this video with the purpose to recommend for you and conclude for myself which one to go with first. And that's what I'm gonna do. Drum roll please. The console to own first is neither! So here's the deal, guys. I'm just as excited to get into the next generation as anyone else. I mean, heck, just check out my weekly podcast. I talk about next generation in almost every single one. Link in the cards. But this year has ruined what I think would have been a great console launch for both sides. But with the global pandemic of COVID-19, it slowed down the production of virtually everything electronic. It's been hard for development companies to finish their games in time, which is very clear when looking at the first-party exclusive launch titles. Between the two consoles, we have one first-party exclusive launch title, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a buggy mess. Everything about this launch has been rushed, from the announcement of prices of both consoles to the pre-order shortages and miscommunication with retailers as to when these pre-orders would launch. I mean, at least in the case of the PS5, it just doesn't feel like the right time to launch a console. Also, one big thing that's been on my mind while making this is the big push for 4K 120. That's the standard, and it's been made very clear, at least in the case of Xbox, that that's the focus going into the next generation, as well as HDR and some ray tracing, but I assume that we're going to see more of that as we get into the generation in the next couple of years. But going back to 4K 120, I don't have a monitor that can display that resolution and that frame rate. So why the hell am I trying to get the new system when I don't even have a monitor that can display what it's trying to put out? It's like buying a razor and no blades, or buying a wallet and not having the money to put in it. Another big thing that I've been considering is the fact that I've barely scratched the surface of what current gen consoles have to offer. I still haven't played Spider-Man or God of War, two huge PS4 exclusives of this generation. And it's never been a better time to go back and check games like that out, now that they've been out for a while and more than likely will be on discount and come with all the DLC in the form of complete editions. So in conclusion, I can't really recommend either console to you guys at this time. But the good news is, as time goes on, all the things that I just said will be worked out. So look for a follow-up video when a clear decision presents itself. But in the meantime, I would recommend going and looking for a monitor. In specific, a gaming monitor, ideally something that can display 4K 120 FPS, so that you can get the most out of these consoles when you do pick them up. Currently, a 4K 120Hz gaming monitor is still pretty hefty as far as cost goes. But holiday sales are just around the corner, so I'm sure we'll be able to find a good gaming monitor that can display 4K 120 and get it at a pretty decent price. But that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hopefully this didn't feel like a colossal waste of your time and you got some value out of it. I can't recommend either one of those consoles, but hopefully I gave you some thought-provoking ideas so you can focus on some alternatives while we wait for these consoles to kind of catch up with themselves as far as games and what they're offering is concerned. But if you guys got value out of this video, do me a favor and smash like, as well as subscribe with bell notifications turned on. Also, I want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Are you going to be picking up an Xbox Series X/S or a PS5? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you want to support me and help me sustain this channel into the future, make sure you check out my Patreon. Link is in the description below. But until next time, guys, Luke from 8-Bit Plus signing out, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.
Oh, look who it is!
I don't want to hear it.
Big smart guy, gonna buy the new console! Told ya!